For the first time in my life, I am happy the Chargers are not playing this week. What is up, everyone? We are live once again here for Nuts and Bolts this week. Tony Tucker, who are you talking to?
No, okay, cool. We'll talk to you later. That was Tom Telesco. He's not interested. He's not interested in anybody on the market.
Whoa.
It was weird to talk to him on a bye week. I thought he'd be with his family. I don't know why he gave me his personal line. No, practice squad. We're going to bring up all these undrafted guys, and we're just going to wing it for the rest of the year. That's the game plan, apparently. That's the game plan, Mike.
Michael Bandy season? Is it too late for that? I don't know. And even when Michael Bandy makes a catch on the sideline, are we going to challenge it when he gets called incomplete? Jesus. Joker, what's up, man? We're going to be going over trade deadline talk today, guys. But first, let's dig in, Tony. Oh, also, make sure you guys like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. All Chargers talk all year long here on our separate channel for the Nuts and Bolts show. Let's talk about the Seattle game briefly, Tony. Anything that we should just get out there off our chest? We were at the game. It was a very hard watch from our perspective. All the injuries, obviously losing the game, the offense not looking great, the defense getting torched. Just overall, we just got destroyed.
Especially because the angle we got from the end zone view, and you could just see every time them start streaking down the field, and you're like, are they going to make it past 8 yards? Nope. They're going to run a little comeback. They're going to run a little hitch. Woo! Good thing we got to see that. I got pretty loaded. Was yelling to Lombardi wherever he was in his suite. He didn't hear me. It's one of those things where, like, maybe in some weird world that they are protecting Herbert from himself and getting injured. Like, maybe the injury is worse than we thought or something. But then I think at some point, would somebody just tell that to us and say, hey, this is why we aren't taking any chances with throwing the ball downfield? Because 45-year-old Tom Brady's not interested in taking hits. In that game that I watched on Thursday night, he was throwing the ball a lot still downfield. Like, so why are we not making more attempts at this or trying to? I don't know. I don't have the reason, but I do know that what I'm watching, and then the social media team is like, here's Justin Herbert's highlights for the year. It's like 3 minutes, and half of them are fucking replayed angles of other. This is the guy who's with shattered ribs throwing dimes downfield to DeAndre Carter. Like, and we can't get any highlights. Athir, I didn't even know you were available on the weekend. How are you? Joker, what's going on?
I don't think that Herbert's injury is worse than it was stated, because I've seen Herbert take some shots in the game when we're down by 20 points with a minute left, and he gets up just fine. He's still in the game, though. So I don't know how you can be protecting him for the first 3 quarters with a terrible offensive game plan and all short yardage work, but then leave him in the game when the game's already lost. Twice now this season in SoFi Stadium in front of your entire home crowd, which the only 2 games I've been to so far as a Chargers fan where we've outnumbered the other fans.
Well, there was somebody who, I forget where I saw it, but they were saying that Herbert was upset on the theater. We needed to talk, bro. What's going on? What's wrong with our relationship? But they were saying that Herbert seemed very pissed and upset on the sidelines. And I hope that that translates into a nice, probably level-headed conversation from Herbert saying, like, what are we doing? What's the game? Like, this can't be the game plan. And another thing, we're going to get into Staley in a second here, but, like, when Kenneth Murray gets an interception on the opening drive and then you don't get it, take some points. Take a shot at some points in that area right there, right? Like, don't leave that turnover early in the game with nothing. Don't allow that team to gain momentum. I'll make that cost them something in that moment. Like, I just don't love this. Oh, we're going to be super aggressive, except for when we throw the ball with our soon to be $500 million quarterback.
I don't understand it either. And kind of like a rule of thumb in offensive play calling. I don't know very much about offensive play calling. What I do know is in defense of what offensive play callers typically go towards in certain situations because I used to play cornerback. A rule of thumb is you get a turnover on defense, you better be alert because they're going to be aggressive and take a shot down the field right after that turnover. We just first down, think. Second down, dink. Third down, incomplete. All right, we'll go for it on fourth and miss it. Like, what are we doing? We got to do something with that possession. If anything, back them off. If anything, back them off. Let them know we are going at your secondary in this game. And this is a Roman Atwood. This is Mike Williams' hat, Roman Atwood T-shirt. I'm rocking my favorite YouTuber and my favorite wide receivers gear today. Last week you laughed at me about Boyd, 8 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. That'll be for the Chargers. He's talking about the prospect of trading for Tyler Boyd. It wouldn't be for the Chargers, Athir, because if we trade for Tyler Boyd, he would be the backup slot receiver on our team.
And I'm not, Athir, it's not laughing at you that you want Tyler Boyd. Why would the Bengals be sellers when they're in to win the division? They're not going to sell Tyler Boyd away from that team. And they're definitely not going to sell him after Jamar Chase is dealing with a pretty significant hip injury. So, like, it's not laughter that you would suggest that player. And we're going to get into, we have a long list of wide receivers, and Tyler Boyd did not make the list again. It's the fit for what we need. The problem is that any of the players that we name aren't really going to do anything, because even while Jalen Guyton was there, I can remember like they took like 4 shots to Jalen Guyton deep, and 2 of them were huge completions down the field before he got injured. That's a pretty high success rate. 2 out of 4, and you're hitting deep passes to Jalen Guyton. So now what if we added somebody who could do
more things or better, than Jalen Guyton? It's not hard to find a better receiver than Jalen Guyton. No offense to Jalen Guyton. But yeah, I agree with you. And Herbert has like this crazy stat line, like historically great stat line on passes over 20 yards. And we don't ever go to it.
Yes. Okay. Theory, you just put somebody in here that made sense. He did not make the list because I don't believe the Broncos would trade.
For one, I wouldn't give a second for KJ, but for 2, I don't think that the Broncos would trade with us.
Yeah.
In this situation, there's plenty of other teams they would trade with first. I think if Tom doesn't get us a wide receiver, then he's showing us that he just doesn't care. Yeah, I mean, I think a receiver is a lock. We have to get a receiver at this point because we're down 4 wide receivers right now on the injury report. So 4 is too many. You can't make it through that. You can make it through 1. Maybe if we were down Mike and Keenan and had Josh Palmer still healthy and ready to go and no fear of these concussions that have been popping up, then maybe they don't add a receiver. But when you're down Guyton, Palmer, Williams, and Allen, at that point, if you don't get anybody, you're basically saying that we are just going to run the football and we are not going to throw the football because that is ridiculously bad weapons for Herbert to go to. It's no offense to Bandy and Moore and DeAndre Carter. That's our punt returner and our 2 practice squad wide receivers that have not been able to make the roster for years.
But it's not even like, first of all, I don't want to say that these guys don't care because I believe that they care immensely about their jobs, right? They're not only tied to their work performance and their employment potential for next season, but also like they're fans like us. They want to see these people that they know very well succeed. The problem is that for the first time, Telesco opened up. They went out, they spent a bunch of money. They made trades, they were aggressive, and it's all falling apart. I think if anything, Telesco is like, what am I doing? This is my 3rd coach. I'm going to lose my job. I don't know why he's not saying like, okay, I'm getting everything that they will allow me to do, that the budget will allow me to do. I'm going to go for it because there might not be a next year, right?
Yeah.
Like if this goes off the rails extremely bad, I'm not sure that the Spanos family would have what it takes to just pull the trigger and say, hey, Staley, you're going to get paid for the next couple of years. Telesco, you're going to get paid for however much longer, but you guys aren't coaching here. This cannot be acceptable, right? Like, I do think the fans have turned out better and showed up, and they're starting to get a reaction to this, but it's going to be tough for that to maintain with the wheels falling off of everything. Like, after, it was hard for me to convince my wife to be like, hey, what, we still want to talk about that Chiefs home game in a couple weeks? And she was like, for what? She's like, Mike's not playing. Like, Eckler's her favorite player, and he's the only one that's left, like, of the people that are left that would be playing. She's like, she got to see Keenan for like a quarter in the Raiders game and for like a quarter against the Seahawks.
2 quarters. Yeah. And I'm praying that Keenan gets back out there. We make a move on a wide receiver, a speedy wide receiver that can fill some targets till Mike gets back, and we get Keenan back. The offense can be pieced back together. The defense can be pieced back together, and we can get by until we get some of these guys back if the right moves are made. But I think even more importantly than free agency, and guys, we have a whole list. We're about to bring it onto the screen here. But first, we have one more topic that I have jotted down to the side, and that is the coaching staff adjustments. And I think that is just as important this week in the bye week, and figuring out what we're going to do to change, whether it's changing philosophies or changing personnel and jobs and roles and responsibilities on the coaching staff to improve what we're putting out on Sundays. Because what we're putting out on Sundays already as it is, no matter the talent that's been out there, has been lackluster on both offense and defense. So I think there needs to be some adjustments. My dream situation, Tony, is Ronaldo Hill, someone who's trying to make a name for himself, might be a little bit more hungry than Staley to be a little bit more aggressive in certain situations like 4th and 1s that we have now given up 2 monster plays on 4th and 1s late in games when we need to stop really bad. Maybe give him the play calling. Maybe give the quarterback coach, Shane Day, the play calling on the offensive side of the ball. Because it seems like when you give one of those guys that hasn't really made it yet in the NFL, that opportunity alone will cause them to put more, or maybe, not saying that Joe Lombardi and Staley ain't putting the work in, but just it's the vibes, really. It changes things up a little bit. And I'm not saying fire Staley and fire Lombardi, but maybe take a step back and focus on game management. We have game management problems also. So maybe Staley can focus on game management and assist on offense, assist on defense, and we hand over the play calling duties a little bit for the actual rhythm in the game. That's just some of the ideas that I have, stuff that I've seen work in the past on teams to get their offenses sparked on and their defenses sparked on. Is there any suggestions you might have, Tony, or anyone in the chat, as far as the alignment of the coaching and what everyone's roles and responsibilities are? Right now, Staley's calling for defense and Lombardi's calling for offense. They're the offensive coordinator and the head coach. Like, it feels like they're running the whole show.
Lombardi needs to be fired. At the very least, the play calling has to be taken away. They get Atlanta coming out of the break. They're not very good against the pass. Their secondary is banged up. If you can't get it done with, I don't care who's at receiver out there, you're still going to have Gerald Everett. Palmer should likely be back. Hopefully Keenan's out there, maybe not. But even with DeAndre Carter and Bandy and Jason Moore and whoever else, we've seen Herbert tear them up with Tyron Johnson, and Jalen Guyton. Those might be the healthiest bodies on the field. So I think that coming out of the bye, it's got to be a sign of life from Lombardi, sort of a last chance, if they're not going to make a move. And maybe that will be the part of the press conference this Tuesday or whenever Staley's back at the thing. But I do think this. You hire a defensive coach, and you're ranked 29th, 30, 31 in the league for a year and a half, the defense has to be different this entire second half of the season. Post-bye, they have to creep back into top 15. You can't have a defense that has Derwin James and Khalil Mack that's still on it. Like, there's still a lot of talent on this defense. And it's not completely broken, but they're still getting gashed. If that's assignment issues or whatever, I don't know what it is. It just has to be better than what it's been. Otherwise, how do you justify keeping him there? Like, how does he keep his job when that is his calling card. Like, if I just don't get, like, it doesn't matter what you do. If I got hired as a window washer and your windows are always dirty or broken, then I need to be fired. And that's what I'm watching. Like, I'm watching, I'm like, okay, this is the week the defense is really going to like shut it down, like where it's going to be a thing. It's going to be, and I haven't even seen it. Not against the Texans. We didn't, I mean, I guess the Broncos, but the Broncos, they're not doing it to anybody. Like, you can't really get credit in my book on that.
And I will point out, the problem with the defense is the big plays, and we gave up big plays in the Broncos game still. You can say it was JC's fault. It was JC's fault, but the defense as a whole gave up big plays in that game as well. And, had a punt returner not muff a punt, we don't even know how that game ends. That could have been a game that we lose or tie with the Denver Broncos, and it's just as ugly of a loss or a tie as that Seattle game and as that Jacksonville game. It's just another one thrown on the record. The part that bothers me about the defense is that it's put together on certain downs, certain plays. It's fine. There's stretches of the game where the defense will be good, but then boom, we give them a big play, and it just loses all the momentum the defense had.
Yeah, and there's just too much talent on that side of the ball. They invested it. I think that Sebastian Joseph-Day and Austin Johnson have done a great job, and every time that the edge gets pressed on one side, it's just a huge problem where somebody doesn't come up and then it's gone. 60, 70-yard runs. We've seen it from rookies that are just like, oh, I just press the edge on this team, and eventually there's just nobody there. And they do it, and they get it, and they hit a big play, big home run. I wanted to leap out of my seat and try and tackle Kenneth Walker on that play.
Yeah. And we saw it. We saw the whole thing perfectly from our view. We saw him go towards the hole. We saw him bounce it around the edge, and we knew right then and there he's gone.
I was deflated.
Yeah, we could tell. And yeah, we understand Joey Bosa's out. We understand that there's some injuries, but at a certain point, one, there's enough talent on the team, and two, if you're gonna have a scheme and be a coach in the NFL, you got to make it work with what you got sometimes. And if you're telling me that you can't make it work, if you don't have Joey Bosa, Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., Khalil Mack, Sebastian Joseph-Day, all together on the line at the same time, then what are we doing? What are you doing as a coach? Are you being carried by the players, or is your scheme enhancing what the players can put on that field?
Mike, this is as good as it was going to get for him, because pretty soon the amount of money that's going to be paid to Herbert is not going to allow him to have high price tags on Mack, Bosa, Derwin, and JC. All four of those guys getting the max at their position. Like, they're the highest paid players at their, not number one, but they're in the top 5 or number 1 in all their positions.
Yeah.
You won't be able to have that kind of luxury.
There's no way.
I don't know why we're doing the show. We should have just skipped it. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah, you won't have the cap availability to put that many big names on the defense. Like, everything's going to have to come from the draft or steals and free agency, stuff like that, once we get Herbert, similarly to how we see the Chiefs doing it perfectly right now. But Spanos are eligible to sell a team in 2026. They want All In to get a ring. It does make sense that they would clean house and try and get another swing at an All-In season, because we do have, I view, a 2-year opportunity here where Herbert's contract isn't going to destroy us until we get towards the middle years of it. I think what Athir is alluding to, that the team is desperate for a ring to raise the price of the team if they're going to sell in 2026. I don't know if Spanos wants to sell. Every time it comes up, it seems like he fights everything he can not to sell.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to sell it at all. I think at some point it's going to be pretty tough for him to win the legal side of it with the sister. Yeah. But they just raised the price of tickets again. Like, so they want more money for what's going on. But like, I got to tell you, it's real tough to be like, okay, now I'm going to spend $600 to go down there and watch a game, fight for traffic, pay for parking, all this stuff. Like, I'll make it down there for a couple games a year, but for season tickets, it's like that's a lot
We
to
ain't there
ask.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when the team is falling short of the mark. Top Boy Mick, MIK. We're about to talk about our list. We have a whole list we're about to put on the screen of free agent and trade deadline targets that we can go after. We gotta have a crazy prediction. Bolts, don't say that. Don't say that here. Seeing the Bolts missing the playoffs. Hey, Tony and Mike, I just don't think the Chargers don't have any respect for the Sea Chickens. I don't know if it was a respecting. I think it just more so was a preparation thing, and the injuries hurt. The injuries hurt.
And let's not be coy. Pete Carroll's a better coach, and that team came in with a game plan, and also run the fucking football. Chargers, stop throwing it 50 times a game. Like, even if it's not working,
Yeah,
you just got to commit to the run, and you just got to say like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We can't just say, hey, every game Herbert's going to throw the ball 50 times. It's not going to be effective. It's already not effective because when Mike, how many times are we sitting there from that angle of the field and it's like they're not even, the safeties aren't even deep. The safeties don't even think that we're going to throw the football downfield.
wild to me. Which is wild to me at number 10. Center. That is wild to me. Yeah, but we talk about solutions to the wide receiver problem. One of them was already happening. Eckler was going nuts for the past 3 games before, and ironically, we happen to win all 3 of those games. We get to this one, and we give up on the run game almost immediately. I understand we had a few turnovers, but I feel like if they would have committed to that run game into the third quarter and into later in the game, it probably stays tighter than the way the game ends up getting, where it gets kind of blown wide open after we made that comeback.
They activate Isaiah Spiller for his first game. They give him 1 carry. Let's see what the kid can do. Let him have 5 carries.
I'm confused by this. Leslie Frazier?
We'll hire
new GM, Leslie Frazier?
Is a new coach and will sit with Herbert to decide what offense. Isn't Leslie Frazier is the defensive guy for Minnesota, correct? No, we're not talking about coaches yet, but Leslie Frazier is not the direction I'm.
But we're going to talk about it here. I'm going to put this list on the screen. Everyone in the chat, if there's any more suggestions, please put them out there. Me and Tony both dug in, and we put this list together of possible targets for us to go after. Some realistic, some less realistic, some dream scenarios, some maybe what actually could happen. This is a long list of names at the positions that we could possibly have need right now due to injury or just due to we needed this position regardless, like the running back 2 situation. Josh Kelly was emerging, but now he is injured as well. Add him to the list, I guess. You see a lot of receivers on here, guys. You see some defensive linemen because you're always looking for depth on the defensive line. You see some DBs with the injury to J.C. Jackson. I think the biggest one, obviously, is wide receiver for us just because we have nothing there, it seems like, at this point going in to this bye week with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer's status all up in the air. Jalen Guyton done for the season. But, Tony, any names you want to highlight? Who would be, like, your favorite addition if they added somebody at this deadline? Who would be the perfect guy, in your opinion?
So I think it's 2 routes. One, I think the perfect guy is Brandon Cooks for me, right? And Top Boy, Mike, Elijah Moore should be on the list. He's not on the list because I don't think the Jets are going to part ways with him. But yes,
Jets, they went public and they said he is not on the trade block.
Yeah, like it's just not. And I know that Joe Douglas before has said this guy's not tradable, and then 24 hours later, that player was traded from the Jets.
Yeah.
I think it's a different scenario, and I think that they understand that with the investment that they have with Wilson, they need to keep players like Elijah Moore and be able to team him up with Garrett Wilson. The injury really set that offense back. But if they got Elijah Moore, he would be number 1. Super mega talented, would love it. I don't think it's going to happen. And it would also cost them like a 2nd round pick. And if you saw the graphic, I don't think that Telesco would be willing to part with anything more than a 3rd rounder. And that would be for a veteran, maybe somebody like Brandon Cooks. That's going to come in I read somewhere about the contract with Brandon Cooks being troublesome. I like Cooks because he offers a lot and can play in multiple spots. Everywhere he goes, he's productive. He's going to be like super reliable. I think he can earn the trust of Herbert very quickly. And he's going to come in, and he's played on teams that have been very successful with the Patriots and the Rams. So I think he's the perfect one for the short term. The long-term one that I really like is De'Ami Brown from Washington. He's only second year in the league. I think they'd be willing to part with him for like a 5th rounder, and he's really fast. He can get behind defenses. He can stretch, deep. I just think he's got a lot of promise as somebody who could be a deep field receiver who runs 4.4. I saw some places where they're like, oh, he didn't test well at the combine, but he really runs 4.3. So he's got super speed, or at least really good above average speed. Allow him to be the deep threat that we need to take the top off defense. And he might be able to say, hey, Washington, you're not getting better than a 5th round pick Tuesday morning. And they might say, all right, there you go. Sorry.
I can see it, yeah. And here's the list again that we have here, guys. The biggest thing at the wide receiver for me, and I think Brandon Cooks is my number one as well, Tony. So we agree on that. Out of every name on here, free agents available on the trade market, whatever it might be, Brandon Cooks number one to me. Because what I'm looking for, and we talked about it on text a little bit, is someone that not only is going to fill a role right now for us while we're dealing with the injuries, especially to Mike Williams, as far as being a down the field threat, able to take the amount of targets and be trustworthy with the football in his hands. It's Brandon Cooks. Then when he comes back, we get Mike Williams back, who's that speedster that can still contribute and stretch the field for us, who could fill the role that we lost Jalen Guyton out of. Also Brandon Cooks, who's also a veteran wide receiver that can help our quarterback out and be a more QB-friendly wide receiver than, say, maybe a DeAndre Carter or a Michael Bandy. It's also Brandon Cooks. And then I also think a lot of people talk about Brandon Cooks' contract. You can add it to the books this year and deal with the contract problem in the offseason and move some money around and make it work. Brandon Cooks is getting to an age where you may be able to get him a little bit cheaper as far as the contract goes on restructures and stuff like that down the line, or maybe move the money to where a lot of it is bonuses and things like that. I think that Brandon Cooks overall for the Chargers also wouldn't cost a 1st round pick at this point in his career either. It says 4th, maybe 3rd. I don't think he would cost a 2nd round pick. Maybe a 3rd and a 6th or some kind of deal like that would get it done. That's my favorite one on here. I would be interested in seeing any of those 3 cornerbacks be added as well, just to add to the depth in the cornerback room. Now with J.C. Jackson out, obviously Asante Samuel Jr. should be coming up to cornerback 1 for the rest of the season. And as far as the defensive lineman, I'm completely fine with just adding someone from free agency like they did at Tachu, like an Ndamukong Suh, like a Sheldon Richardson. There were some more names out there that are a little bit older, maybe a little bit less likely to get back on the football field. I see a name trending a lot has been Denzel Mims, because a lot of people just like his 2nd round pedigree that he still kind of carries. It's a young receiver that just can't find his footing in New York. Maybe you could find it somewhere else. That's a possible option. He fills the role nicely of what we need, at least.
Wait, who was it? Say it again.
Denzel Mims, Jets wide receiver. He hasn't been suiting up for them. He's just kind of been a healthy scratch. They've been just keeping him there, just figuring out what they're going to do.
Yeah, he just has been inconsistent, right? Like, there's a reason that he's not on the field. It's not necessarily his ability. It's understanding the playbook or cohesion with whatever it is. So, like, why would we want to come in and try and make him understand something mid-season? It doesn't seem like a great addition for me on the fly. Maybe an off-season one where it's like, hey, he's just out there, bring him in because the talent is there, the draft pedigree, like he was drafted really high. Top Boy might be saying that
That's what I'm saying too. I'll be honest with you. As much as I bag on Jerry Jeudy, I would not be upset.
I wouldn't be mad either. I don't love the idea of giving up a 2nd and a 6th round pick, but like if Jerry Jeudy is who he was supposed to be, and maybe he would be with Herbert there, great. I don't know, why would the Broncos trade Jerry Jeudy to the Chargers where he could potentially work out to what they thought he would be. There's a reason they drafted him in the first round. Like, it just feels weird that they would trade him to the Chargers. But great if they do it. I would just like to see Telesco also fight. And if he did something like that, even if I didn't love it, it wasn't my favorite move, I would still be happy that he went and was like, hey, I realize what's going on here. We've suffered some bad injuries. Let's go get this guy and bring him in here and see if he can be worthy of that first round pick.
I'm not seeing anything on Adam Schefter's page of what you're alluding to. Maybe you could send it to us, man, so we can look at it ourselves. I don't see anything that has the Chargers linked to Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I haven't seen it anywhere either, but it doesn't matter. This is all just speculation. I want to talk about one more player on there, Montez Sweat, edge rusher, outside guy for the Commanders. To me, he feels like somebody that is still going to be productive, even with him and Bosa and Mack. Like, I think you can still find ways to get all three of those guys on the field at the same time. He has an option for next year where they could bring him back. He's only like 26, 27. And with that organization in flux where it's at, we don't know what's going on. They might be willing to part with him, even though he's been a pretty productive player, 6 to 9 sacks every year for that team. It would be nice to get somebody in there like that to help out the defense. It's just, that's the bottom line is like, we need somebody else on that other side. And now Rumph is injured and Bosa's injured, and we're looking at Tuska and who? I don't even know his name.
I feel Jeremiah Attachu is who we signed.
Attachu, yes.
I feel similarly about like Jerry Hughes. Like, there's someone that can fill that role for us. You can make the decision on where it's going to go as far as the long term later. Montez Sweat would be perfect because that guy's actually a baller, dude, and he can move around the D line. He's one of those D linemen that is useful inside and outside. I put Payne on the list as well, just because there's been rumors that he might get traded. I don't think the Chargers initially in the market to make a big swing at a defensive lineman, but possibly just add someone to fill in because we have so many freaking injuries all over the field. But man,
yeah, Jerry Hughes is somebody that I wanted in the offseason. They added Kyle Van Noy. Great. He adds more versatility than Jerry Hughes does. But right now, when we're looking at the roster, Jerry Hughes is one of the guys I sent on the list because he's 33, 34 years old. He's not got a lot of time left. He's not making a ton of money there. He's a great veteran presence. He works super hard, and he can get after the quarterback still. And he plays the edge pretty nice in the run too. Like, he just feels like a really good fit to help out with a lot of the issues that we're seeing on the defensive side of the football.
What do you think about Tyron Johnson returning? I think that was one that actually could happen.
I think he already got picked up by another team. Like, he was signed to a roster the other day. I forget who it is. Somebody Google that. Tyron Johnson just was taken off the practice squad and signed to somebody's roster, I believe. I forget who it was.
I mean, he has chemistry with Herbert. We saw what he can do. He actually can play.
But we've already talked about it. Like, they've had plenty of opportunities to bring him back, and they just don't like him for some reason. They cut him and sent him away for a reason.
Houston. Saying Houston picked him up. All right, they got Tyron Johnson, so send us Brandon Cooks. There you go.
Yeah,
you got Tyron, you get Cooks. It all works out. I did see this as well, Thier, that Denver is going to be trading these guys. But you got to remember, Thier, trading them doesn't mean even that they would consider trading them to a division rival, especially a division rival who is above them in the standings right now. It's not like we're a division rival that's like a shit team right now. Well, they'd be sending them to a team they'd have to contend with and play against for years to come if they sent us KJ Hamler or Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it's weird because you might trade within your division of guys that are like fringe roster players. Like, oh, hey, here is a backup guard or something. You're not trading cornerstone because here's the thing. If they traded Jerry Jeudy to the Chargers and then Jerry Jeudy has a 7-year stretch where he puts together Hall of Fame resume with Justin Herbert, because that's the kind of that's the kind of ability Herbert has, the ability to make guys Hall of Fame receivers. If you were average and you are good at football, right? Now, people thought Jerry Jeudy was great at football, and now he's going to get to play with a great quarterback, and you could have him for 5, 6, 7 years, and he's putting up 1,500-yard seasons. That just makes the Broncos look incompetent. This is new ownership.
Yeah.
They're not looking around going, oh, let's trade him within our division. Like, that to me sounds insane. Like, I just can't see it.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade. Are you talking about Nick Chubb or are you talking about Bradley Chubb? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not the biggest Bradley Chubb fan. I think that he's like just like a above average to good pass rusher, but the injuries with him bring him way down on the list for me when it comes to talking about edge rushers. We don't need a Chubb type move. We got Bosa coming back.
Yeah.
We need. I like the Sweat idea. That's a good idea that you bring up, Tony.
I like Sweat because he also gives us an option for next year where he could be.
And who knows? Maybe they take that option, and next year we have the best defensive line of football from it. You know what I mean?
I will trade 2 first-round picks for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, no. Nick Chubb, send him everything. Bradley Chubb, send him nothing. They are not trading Nick Chubb, though. I don't think.
Yes, that would be insane if they did that. But I did have Kareem Hunt on the list, who's somebody where it's like, if we are going to decide, like, hey, we're not going wide receiver route, but we're going to run the ball more, let's bring in somebody who is similar skill set to Eckler. I'm sorry, I'm very sick.
There we go.
Right. Let's bring in somebody similar to Eckler. And just have these guys out there where they both catch the ball nicely out of the backfield. They both can run between the tackles. And let's just go ahead and just run the ball 25 to 30 times a game with these two guys and run and throw the ball 33 times a game with Herbert. And that's sort of the game plan going in. Yeah. Nick Chubb to the Chargers would be insane. You're damn right it would be. That would be it'd be a party. I'd be over here popping bottles. I don't even have bottles to pop, but I would go. I have a nice single malt scotch I've been waiting to open. I would open that up and have a drink. Talk about Nick Chubb running for 200 yards every weekend.
Yeah, be getting that Nick Chubb jersey immediately. Well, he'd only get like 13 carries in our offense, knowing Lombardi.
Well, that's what Stefanski's doing with him anyways, too.
I know.
Yeah.
Browns could go undefeated on games where Nick Chubb has 25 carries and they still won't give him 25 carries. Well, anyways, I think that's the show for today, guys. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. It was a good one. Hopefully you guys tuned into the replay. If you are, leave some names in the comments for us of who you think the Chargers should target. If they're on this list, great. Here's our list. If they're not on this list, that's fine.
What was the compensation for Tony? I didn't follow up on that.
It was
does anybody remember?
Third and a sixth.
All
which
right.
is, it feels like that's a good buy for him. I mean, you're taking a lot of risk with his injury and his character concerns, but that's a pretty good buy for the Chiefs, in my opinion.
Oh, I think it's a great buy. It's what we are not doing, right? Where it's like, again, like Top Boy was saying Elijah Moore. And it's like, okay, so now that should be our response is like, we're going to go give up a second or a third for Elijah Moore or a second for Jerry Jeudy or somebody.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks. That's the swing right there that teams make, like the Philadelphia Eagles, that I love to see, that we need to make those kind of moves right here at this deadline.
Howie Roseman is my hero. He's just like, well, here we go. We already have 3 edge rushers, but Robert Quinn, why don't you come on over here and just be a 4th?
Yeah, it's crazy because they're going to be able to use him just purely to pass rush. They don't need to ask him to do anything else, but just go get quarterbacks. It's beautiful for them.
Where's Top Boy Mike get all his information from? He's now saying that the Packers are trading Jair Alexander.
Where are they getting all this information from?
Top Boy Mike is plugged in. What's your channel, Top Boy Mike? Because we need to get on your source of.
I don't see any news on that either. Hopefully they're trading J.R. Alexander for a goddamn receiver. All right, we're going to get out of here, guys. We have another show, by the way. If you guys want to follow us over to the MJT Football channel, we're about to briefly go over our picks for this week. We have Joe's picks submitted as well. If you guys want to go over MJT Football, it's about to happen right now. We'll talk to you guys next week. We'll be previewing the Atlanta Falcons game on Friday night. Anything else, Tony?
Come on, Telesco. Pick up that burner.
Yeah, put that do-rag back on. Get the cigarette in the mouth. Let's go get some more players, Tommy T. This is the week to do it. This is the week to do it. Save our season. We will see where we are at in a week. Hopefully we have another receiver or two on the roster. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll see you next week.